All right, so I've never been asked to speak after dinner and before ice cream. Okay, so that's a tough time slot to fill. All right, so I recognize what's going on in your bodies right now. I'm feeling the same way. I had too much baked potato for dinner. So I'm going to keep it light. We're going to keep it easy, but we are going to follow the same format that we followed earlier today. There are going to be some movement breaks. The first one, we're going to kind of like ease you into it, all right? It's more mental gymnastics than it is physical. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of up and down, and I hope to kind of get to share a little bit of my story with you this evening. So let's go ahead and start off. This is our movement break. Do I just hit down on this? Is that, Dave, is it set up the same way, or I got to like...
Go up to the...
Ooh, yeah, there we go. Page 1 of 19. Okay. Only 18 more to go. All right, so for this movement break, you can stay sitting. Zen, can I use you as my volunteer?
Sure.
You can just hang out right there. You don't have to get up. We're going to play a game called 21, and the goal is to get my partner to say 21. If Zen says 21, I win, okay? Here's how it works. I'm going to start out, and I can either say 1, 2, or 3. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. Then you can add on up to 3 numbers. So you can say 4, you could say 4, 5, or you could say 4, 5, or 6. Let's go ahead, Zen.
6.
All right, so 4, you have to count. Oh, sorry.
4, 5, 6.
Perfect. So I'm going to say 7, 8, 9. Now it's your turn.
9, 10,
Okay, 11, 12.
13, 14, 15,
16, 17, 18.
19, 20.
Okay, so I'm left with saying what? 21. So I lose the round, Zen wins. All right? Zen always wins, right? Right? Okay. So we're going to play 21. What I want you to do is I want you to play with somebody, whoever the winner is, congratulate them, and then I want you to play someone else. Okay? See if you can figure out the strategy. Okay? I didn't really reveal a strategy just then. I think Zen's almost got it figured out. So let's play for 3 minutes, go around. Try to get your partner to say 21. You can play as a group of 3 if somebody's left out. Same rules. All right, here we go. All right, awesome. So that game is 21. And you were asking me the question earlier with the overalls on or with about high school, right? Yeah. Tell me your name. Riley. What is it? Riley, that's a great game for high schoolers to play, and it's a good, just simple little icebreaker. Doesn't require a lot of moving. You can play it if you just have eaten a baked potato. Okay, I'm going to share a little bit of my story tonight, all right? I talked with my mom about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was like, send me your best childhood photos, and this is what she came up with. So, whatever your interpretation is. But so I grew up in the Southeast. I was talking with Jill and the folks from Cocoa Fox earlier. Cocoa Fox? Yeah, awesome. And just talking a little bit about growing up in the South. Pretty boring, normal childhood existence, except for I was a terrible student. And before I get into that, I just want you to notice, look at this sweater. Can you believe that was cool at one point in time? All right. And I distinctly remember picture day. It's 3rd grade, so I'm what, like 8, I think, 7, 8. My mom spent like 30 minutes in a whole can of like Aquanet to get my hair to do that. So that's like a painful memory for me. But anyway, I grew up in the South, had a terrible school experience. From the time I entered kindergarten till the time they kicked me out the door in high school, I was an awful student. I was always in the principal's office. They were always calling my parents. I was always butting heads with anyone in the school building who was telling me to do anything. Okay, so I had a terrible school experience. Also had a terrible PE teacher in elementary school. We played a lot of Red Rover, okay? We played a lot of dodgeball. I got hit in the head with enough kickballs by the time I was 8 to never want to step into a gym again, okay? So I had this really just sort of bad school experience. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy being in the building. I would fake sick to not have to go. And when I was there, they were trying to get me out the door too. So just not that great of a childhood experience for me. I also was mediocre at everything I did as a kid, okay? I played every sport imaginable that was available to a kid in the Southeast, which isn't a lot, but I played it all, okay? Right guard, all right? Do I look like a right guard to you? At that age? Yeah, I was a little chunky now. I probably weighed about the same thing as I weigh now, okay? But I basically stopped growing in like 5th grade. I was mediocre at everything. I spent a lot of time standing on the sidelines, cutting up with my friends at most of the sporting events. I also dabbled in music. Same thing. Just passing for bad on pretty much every musical instrument I picked up. My grandparents bought me a drum set one year for Christmas. I don't think my parents have forgiven them to this day, okay? Put it in the living room. I went crazy on that thing for like 2 years. It's really bad, okay? But I love this picture for 2 reasons. My Uncle Bo, I want you to check out that mullet. That was when like mullets were cool and they weren't ironic, okay? That was just like straight up cool, like early 90s, late 80s mullet. He used to use the shampoo that you use on horses, that you know, like the horse mane, so it gave him like the sheen and the shine. I couldn't do the mullet. My mom wouldn't let me do it. But this isn't a shadow. This is a rat tail, all right? Anyone know what a rat tail is? It's like mullet.
I had one.
You had one. Awesome.
Bowl cut.
Thanks for owning up to that. So that's like the mullet on training wheels, right? And my mom already told you she loved to do my hair. Put a perm in that, all right? Put a perm in that. That's pretty embarrassing, okay? So I was absolutely mediocre, pretty much everything I did growing up. And I didn't care. I was having a good time when I wasn't in school, okay? I fumbled my way through most of my school experience, and I realized when I got into high school that if I turned my act around, I could get out of my hometown, okay? I realized that college was my ticket out. So I straightened up, I played the part, followed the rules. I didn't get suspended that much, and I got into college, okay? And so I went to college, and I did not have the Eastern Oregon experience. I did not have the Teachers Academy, okay? I had a crusty old white dude that was as old as the university that I went to as an advisor, okay? And I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life other than I didn't want to be in my hometown, okay? So I go in, I sit down after my first semester of college, and my advisor says, "Have you ever thought about education?" And I was like, "Yeah, I hate it. What else do you need to know about it, right?" And he's like, "No, you need to be a teacher." And I'm like, this dude's had one conversation with me, right? He knows nothing about me. And I'm like, why do I need to be a teacher? And he says, you only have to take one math class and no foreign language classes. And I was like, sign me up. So I signed up. I went through the program. I did all the teaching stuff. I actually kind of enjoyed it, but I got out of school and I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. Teachers are lame. Teachers were mean to me my whole life. I don't want to do that. So I bounced around, did a bunch of odd jobs. I always ended up with kids, whatever I was doing. I did summer camps. I did some wilderness therapy. I worked for the state of Georgia, their DFACS department. I don't know what it's called in Oregon. I worked for the Department of Justice with the kids in the state of Georgia. And I did all these cool things with kids. And I hated the job, but I liked working with kids. So I started learning that, hey, maybe I might actually want to be a teacher one day. Then the 2008 Olympics happened. Does anybody know who this is? No? Martin, you don't know who this is? No, he doesn't run anymore. He burned out. But his name is Ryan Hall, okay? Ryan Hall was like the great hope for the Americans in the Olympics in 2008. He was going to roll over to Beijing. He was going to medal, okay? And the media really caught on to Ryan Hall's story. And for some reason, it resonated with me. I still don't really know why to this day. But I was captivated by Ryan Hall for a solid month in the summer. And what Ryan Hall inspired me to do was to start running. I used to run in high school. Again, was mediocre. I was like 5th spot on a pretty bad cross-country team. But I enjoyed doing it. And so Ryan Hall helped me rekindle this passion for running, okay? And in the last 13 years since Ryan Hall inspired me to put on a pair of tennis shoes, I've logged about 20,000 miles, and I've run all over the country. I've run up and down mountains. I've been to places that don't have names, and just running has taken me all over the place. And what I realized was that I had a passion for movement, okay? I talked a little bit about that earlier. But my story was, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I was at this intersection where I was falling in love with running, and I knew that I liked kids. And I was like, I got to put that together, right? So I was like, what can I do? I was like, I'm going to be a PE teacher, right? I'm going to be that guy that I hated growing up, right? So I decided to go back to grad school. I went to grad school, I got my act together, and I became a teacher, okay? I've spent the last 11 years following that passion for movement and following that passion for kids that I was in denial about. So I want to tell you, if you're sitting here and you're on the edge and you're thinking about teaching, go for it. Give it a try, okay? It's worth taking that risk for. Teaching has been the most rewarding thing that I've done for my life outside of having my own 2 children, okay? Teaching is an absolute awesome experience. When I finished grad school 11 years ago, my goal was to be the exact opposite of what I had as a child. I wanted to be the cool PE teacher. I wanted to be the fun PE teacher. I wanted to be the guy that when you saw me in the hall, you went bananas for because you were so excited to see me, okay? And so I spent the last 11 years trying to live into that. And I want to tell you about a friend of mine, Elise, who intersected with me at this point in time in my teaching. 3 years ago, I had a family medical emergency, and I had to take the last 6 weeks of school off to be with a family member. And Elise was an old colleague of mine. She went to school in the 60s. I think she's a few years younger than Dave. Dave's the only one that laughed at that? Come on, people. No, I don't know how old Dave is.
I don't know if Elise would be really happy with that.
Yeah, Elise gives me a hard time all the time. But anyway, so Elise was retired and had a blast when she was teaching, was a classroom teacher. And I called her up and I said, Elise, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to teach PE for 6 weeks. And she was a really good friend of mine, so she said okay. And so she stepped in my classroom. She spent 6 weeks teaching PE, and we texted and talked on the phone. And I made sure she was doing okay, and I checked in on my students. And that was 3 years ago. Last month, I ran into Elise. And Elise came up to me and she said, I want to thank you for allowing me to come in your classroom for 6 weeks. And I was like, Elise, this is really weird. That was 3 years ago. Why are you just telling me about, what's going on? And I could see Elise kind of starting to get emotional. And Elise said to me, she said, I spent 6 weeks healing in your classroom. And Elise went on to tell me about the PE teacher that she had in the 60s who was a male who told her that she wasn't good enough, who told her that she shouldn't be doing PE at all, but that she had to be in there. And he didn't want her in there. And he told her that she wasn't good at jumping, and she wasn't good at running, and she wasn't as good as the boys. And Elise took on that story, and she took on that identity, and she walked around with it for 60 years, okay? And then she had this happen. She just happened to teach my PE class for 6 weeks. And she said, for the first time in my life, I thought I was okay. And at this point, I started crying, obviously, okay? And Elise started crying. And she told me my identity was wrapped up in this story, in this narrative that I wasn't good enough. And your class allowed me to change that. And she said, I see that every kid in your class feels safe, and they feel seen, and they feel valued. And so Elise was able to rewrite her story late in her life. And so the first thing I want you to know and understand and grab a hold of tonight is that your story matters, okay? Who you are matters. Everything that's happened to you, good, bad, ugly, everything in between to get you to this moment right now, it matters. It's a piece of who you are. And I have to get you to understand that you need to be able to celebrate that. Okay? Regardless of what it is that's happened to you up to this point, you need to be able to celebrate it. You need to be able to acknowledge it. Okay? Your story is the lens that you look at the world with. You're telling your story all the time. Every time you interact with the world, you're telling your story. I met Chris at lunch today. Chris told me a piece of his story just by having a conversation. Okay? I learned a little bit of Chris's story. I learned a little bit about who he is. All right? So you're always telling your story, so you might as well use it. Okay? It's your most powerful tool as a teacher because there's no other story that's like yours. And you're going to have students that have similar stories to yours, and they need to be heard. And you can use your story to engage them in that way. And probably the most important thing about your story is it's never too late to make a good edit. Okay? Elise made a life change 60 years after a bad experience for her. It's never too late to make a good edit. Okay? Never too late to go into teaching. Never too late to make that change that you need to make to have a positive experience for yourself. All right, next movement break. We're going to play Rock It Out, otherwise known as rock, paper, scissors. Okay, everybody put your fist out. And we're going to say, rock it out. On out, that's when you put out your whatever you're doing. So it's rock it out, rock it out, scissors, rock it out, paper. Please tell me you know what beats what.
No spot.
No. Yeah, your kids are going to try to throw, they're going to try to throw in all the crazy things. It's just rock. It's just scissors. It's just paper, okay? But we're going to play something called 3 Loss, okay? So Chris, will you be my guinea pig for this one?
Sure.
So if we play the first round, let's say I lose, I go down to 1 knee. We play again, I lose for the second time, I go down to 2 knees. We play again, if I lose there, I lose, the tournament is over. Chris has dominated me. In normal times, Chris would help me up, shake my hand, tell me a good game, then we're going to go off, play somebody again. Okay? So this is called 3 Loss, Rock It Out. Great way to solve conflict for the little ones. Works for the big kids too. My wife uses this to open up her Spanish class. She teaches them the vocabulary words for that. All right, let's play 3 Loss, Rock It Out. All right, awesome. Jill, you got to keep reminding me about the movement, about the breathing exercise. I almost forgot. All right, so we're going to wrap this one up with, it's just drawing with your eyes closed. All right, so what I want you to do in just a second is you're going to close your eyes, you're going to hold out your drawing finger, and you're going to just take some breaths, just normal ones, deep ones, whatever you want to do. And what I want you to do is I want you to write your full name while you're breathing. First name, middle name if you got one, however many last names you have. I want you to just write it out in the air. And when you're finished, I just want you to open your eyes, look up at me. That's how I'll know that you are ready to go. Whenever you're ready. I'm not going to do it. I got to keep my eye on you. Awesome. Okay. Thanks for playing along with that. That's a great one for any younger kids, even older kids, just to work on their spelling. It just really kind of slows your brain down, makes you kind of think about what you're doing. All right. I shared with you kind of my journey to teaching. We're going to hop back on the time machine a little bit, go back to a little bit before teaching, tell you about something that I learned that I've taken with me into my teaching career. Okay, these are some of my craziest and wildest students. Mr. Armando down at the bottom, Finley Fox up top, and a couple of wild kids that beat me at the fall foot race last year when I was dressed up like a banana. I guess the year before last, actually, before COVID. These are just some of my favorite kids from class. Finley Fox would always bring a crazy headband, and we would swap out for class. We never gave each other lice. I don't know if I'd recommend you doing that in your class. But when we did it, it was a fun way for us to just kind of bond and have a good time. She would always wear whatever smelly hat I had on. I would wear whatever cute headband she brought in. But before I was a PE teacher, I worked at a place called Inner Harbor. And Inner Harbor was a last stop for minors who had committed violent crimes. And it was complete this program and leave on probation, or fail this program, go to juvenile detention, and wait till you're old enough to go to prison. Okay? So it was kind of the last stop in a long line of bad decision for a bunch of youth, okay? And they hired me for some reason to take these kids rock climbing and mountain biking and canoeing and whitewater rafting and camping, and it was a blast, okay? But what I learned on day one is when you walk into the cafeteria, you got to have your head on a swivel, okay? Because I walked in on day one, the chairs flying, tables getting flipped, big crazy brawl in the cafeteria, okay? So I learned a lot about myself, kind of physically at that job, what I was capable of doing and kind of getting myself situations out of. But what I really learned about that job is that those kids were telling a story that they needed someone to listen to, okay? Most of those kids had never had anyone in their life listen to their story. And I worked with a therapist there that made those kids tell their story. And it was heartbreaking, the things that you heard that had happened to those kids. But I learned that once you started listening to those kids, that magic started to happen, right? You started to get to know them as a person, not as someone who's committed a crime. And once you start to do that, and I say magic happens, the behavior doesn't change, but the relationship starts to form. And you start to be able to kind of cut through some of those things, okay? And that's something that I took very near and dear, and I took that into teaching with me. And I know so much about all of my students before I try to teach them anything. I spend so much the first few weeks of school going into classrooms and reading. If I see a kid out in the neighborhood and they don't have a bike helmet, I get them a bike helmet, okay? I just start doing the little things that show these kids that they're seen and that they're heard, okay? Judy LoBianco, all right, loudmouth PE teacher from New Jersey. That's how she describes herself. That's not my description, but she lives up to it. She told me at a conference about 7 or 8 years ago, she said, you can't teach anyone anything until they know that you care about them, okay? And that really helped me make that connection to my own school experience. I realized that I didn't think that anybody cared about me. And that's why I was always in the office. Because I thought, why should I listen to you when you don't respect me and you don't care about me? And so Judys Quote changed the way that I teach, okay? It drove home the fact that kids need to be listened to, and if you ever want to teach them anything meaningful, you have to have a positive relationship with them, okay? And your worst kids, behavior-wise, have the best, wildest, craziest stories, and they need somebody to listen to them. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips to help you in the field of education or whatever job you take or whatever path you choose to go down. I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to nail a relationship with anybody, okay? Get the name right, all right? I grew up, my name is Brack. I got called Brock. I got called Brat. I got called all sorts of crazy things that was not my name, all right? And I had teachers who called me the wrong thing for the entire school year. It's like, how can you not get it right? I've seen you like 190 days this year, and you say my name a lot, right? I was always getting into trouble, so it's like, at least get my name right, okay? I work with a huge Latinx population, all right? Day 1 to day 15 or so, I'm learning so many names that I, as a white boy from the South, do not know how to pronounce, okay? But I work on it until I get it because it's important. It's the first thing that you say to somebody that says, I see who you are, and I'm going to take the time to get to know you, okay? Next thing, ask good questions. This is so easy with elementary school kids because all they want to do is talk, all right? They're just going to come in, Day one, Jill, they're going to tell you about their dog. They're going to tell you about their other dog. They're going to tell you about their cousin's dog. They're just going to come in talking, and all you got to do is just prod them along with some good questions, and you'll get to know everything that you ever wanted to know and way more about your students, okay? High school kids, way more difficult, but if you ask good questions and you get their name right, over time, they're going to let you get to know them, okay? Questions are so important. Learn to ask good questions, all right? Example of a good question for a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old. Hey, what's your favorite video game? What's your favorite TV show? What'd you do this weekend? How'd your baseball game go? All right? It's not hard to ask a child a good question. It shows them that they're seen. It shows them that they matter to somebody. Favorite thing to do? Compliment the kid that comes into my classroom wearing the new pair of shoes. Because you know what they do? They want to show you how fast they are. All right? Johnny comes in, he's got the new kicks on. I'm like, oh, Johnny, I saw you from all the way down the hall, man. Those are looking good. You want to see how fast I am? I'm like, yeah, of course I want to see how fast you are. I'm the PE teacher. I just stop what I'm doing. I just stand there. I'm like, go for it, man. Johnny runs until he can't run anymore. I'm like, Johnny, I could barely see you were so fast. All right? Simple, right? It's not rocket science. Compliment them. You see they got a haircut? Hey, did you get a haircut? Yeah. Oh, I love it. Who cut your hair? My mom. And you're thinking, I can tell, but it's like, but you say, it's you noticing them, right? It's not that difficult. It's not rocket science. All right, Dave, I'm going to give out a college bonus tip. You tell me if this works, okay? All right. We're going to go down the list here in a college scenario because some of you are about to be undergrads for the first time, all right? Day one, lecture hall, somewhere like this, classroom, wherever. Into class, doesn't matter where you sit. They always tell you to sit up front. I can never sit up front. I got to be in the back walking around. Doesn't matter where you sit. Into your first lecture, go up to your professor. Hello, professor, teacher, whatever. What do they call you, Dave?
I tell them they can call me anything as long as it's not an expletive.
Okay, perfect. Save that for out in the hall, okay? So you go up and you're like, hey, Dave, nice to meet you. My name's Brack. Introduce yourself day one, all right? Next step to get in good graces with your professor. Few weeks in the class, write down a question, all right? You don't have to ask it in front of everybody, all right? Some of you have been brave and have asked me questions, which are awesome. Thanks for taking the time to do that. But what I want you to do is I want you to swing by office hours. They still have that, right? Okay. I want you to swing by office hours. You knock on the door. You're like, hey, Dave, you were talking about this a couple of weeks ago or last week. Can you explain this a little bit more? Seek out some information from your professors. Ask a good question. Last thing, this goes so far. When they nail a class, tell them. All right? Because we don't nail all of them. All right? We don't nail maybe most of them. I don't know. But when your teacher nails a presentation, when they say something that like pulls on a heartstring or really connects two pieces of information in your brain, go up after class and say, hey, thanks for sharing that today. That was awesome. Okay? Dave, if somebody did all three of those things to you within the first month of class, what are you going to think about that student?
I think that they would, first of all, as I am grading or I'm thinking about how they're doing, I think that's something I keep in mind. And I think also, here's another one. If they're willing to come up and say, I had a concern about how you did something today. And then, have a discussion.
Right.
I'm like, hey, they're paying attention, they're listening, and they're also calling me out on something that they disagree with, which I'm fine with.
So Dave just said he thinks about you as a person when he's putting your grade into the grade book, okay? Now, right. Now, but yeah, I'm not teaching you how to manipulate your college professors. But what I am teaching you is that if you take the time to form a relationship with somebody, it will pay off in your favor big time, okay? I didn't know much going into school, but I did know that I needed to get to know my professors, okay? I took the time to get to do that. Some of my grad school professors, I did not realize it at the time, were like nationally known for PE, okay? I have rode some of those coattails for the last 11 years. Those names get me into circles that I could not have access to just because I took the time to form a relationship with them. They took the time to form a relationship with me. I'm telling you now, if you take the time to get to do that with the staff here, they will help you go to the places that you want to go to. Okay, so that's just like a side bonus tip. Not teaching you how to get a better grade on the sly, or maybe I am. Yeah, oh yeah, you got to have a letter of rec. How many do you have to have for your job? 3? Yeah, you got to have 3. You got to find 3 people that are going to say something nice about you. That's tough sometimes, especially when you just graduated from college, okay? All right, time for the next movement break. Today, we're going to be doing full body rock it out. So we just play with our hands. I'm going to teach you how to play with your feet. Anybody ever play with their feet before? Perfect, brand new. All right, everybody stand up. Instead of going rock it out, you're going to go rock it out. All right, you can just bend your knees if you had too much baked potato. Yeah, okay. It's been 40 minutes. You should have most of it digested by now. But so it's rock it out. This is rock. Rock it out. That's scissors. And rock it out. That's paper. Okay? Is that confusing enough for you? Yes. All right.
I'm going to be able to do it as fast this time.
Review. All right, tell me, what is this? Rock it out. Paper. Rock it out. Rock it out. Rock, okay? I just want you to play one person 2 or 3 rounds. See if you can recognize who even won, okay? And then go play somebody else, all right? Just a couple of minutes, new perspective on the game. All right, so let's pause there. Some people are like, this is hard, right? That's kind of the point. The point of a lot of these things are to make you think while you're moving your body. It doesn't matter who wins, okay? I will tell you that elementary school children, 98.9% of the time, go rock it out. The first time, every time, okay? Use that to your advantage, all right? That's another hot tip, okay? If you want to remain undefeated in full body, rock, paper, scissors. That's a good way to go about it, okay? All right, quick breathing exercise, just where you're at. I like to teach my kids to be in touch with their bodies while they're breathing. So we're going to put one hand on our belly, the other hand on your heart. And I want you to just sit up nice and tall, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Take 3 breaths on your own and just feel what's happening in your body. Okay, you've been around long enough to know what's happening in your body, but your students have not. So it's nice after you've done something exciting, make them check in. Couple of deep breaths on your own. Awesome. Okay, some more pictures from my life before the pandemic. We're so close, people. Okay, these are some of the people in my life that make me want to be a better person. This is my friend Derek Grease. So awesome. He teaches 4th grade and 5th grade at the same time. He has like 30 kids in his classroom. It's complete and total chaos, and I love every second of being in his room, okay? He builds a boat with his class every year. I'm talking like saws and glue and power tools, okay? If you think it's a good idea to give a 10-year-old a power tool, you are crazy, okay? But he pulls it off every year. He also starts a rock band every year with his class. He has a bass guitar in his class. He has a piano in his class. He has drums in his class. He has guitars in his class. He has all kinds of crazy music, okay? He makes me play the bass line for the school song. It's like, I don't even know what it is, but it's like he numbers the frets for me, and it's just like boom, boom. You know, it's like two little things. I don't know how to play bass, but he gets you involved from the first second that you walk into his class. And his energy level is twice what mine is, okay? And I love being around him because it makes me feel alive. And he's a master at getting to know his own kids. So he challenges me to be a better educator, okay? This is my principal, Gus Hedberg. I started working for him my 6th year of teaching. He was my 7th principal, okay? Math doesn't add up, right? I had some really bad ones. I had some ones that didn't survive the school year, okay? And I've had Gus for the last 5 years. He's one of the kindest, calmest people I've ever met in my entire life. 5 years, I've never heard him speak an ill word of a student, a parent, or a teacher. 5 years, I've never heard him raise his voice. He doesn't need to, because he knows and the students know that he cares about them. And every single day I go to work for Gus Hedberg, I want to be a better teacher because he's that good, okay? I wanted to put these slides up here because I want you to know that you need to find those people in your life, okay? We talked about your story. We talked about your relationships. You need to find the people in your life that make you want to be a better person, okay? You're going to work with some teachers that aren't interested in being better teachers. And guess what happens if you hang out with them? You don't become a better teacher, okay? But you're going to have some people in your building that are going to be excited to be alive, excited to be working with kids, and those are the people that you need to find in your building because they inspire you to be better. One of the things Gus challenged me to do my very first year, my very first day of teaching PEs, he said, I want you to teach one thing this year that you've never taught before, okay? And I was like, man, I've been teaching this for 6 years. Haven't I taught it all? So I sat down and I started reflecting. I was like, what am I going to teach? What am I going to teach? So I taught a dance unit that year that I'd never taught before in a different way that I'd never thought about teaching. And it was one of the best things that I did all year. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do this every year. I'm going to teach one thing I've never taught before, and I'm just going to try it out. And it's made me a better teacher. 3 years ago, I wrote a grant. Someone was crazy enough to give me about 10 grand in skateboards and helmets and elbow pads and knee pads and wrist guards and all this other stuff. And I started teaching skateboarding, all right? I cannot skateboard, okay? I fell so hard the first time I ever got on a skateboard. Think whatever you believe in that I was wearing that equipment because, man, that was rough, okay? But the last 3 years, I've learned to skateboard. And guess what? My students have too. And you want to know what their favorite thing to do every single year that I see them is skateboarding. Something I had never done until just a few years ago. You want to know, at the end of the school year, every year, the fifth graders write, and the fourth graders and third graders write, what's your favorite memory from the school year? Overwhelming number of students this year wrote juggling, all right? I taught kids how to juggle by making YouTube videos about how to juggle this year. I didn't know how to juggle, they didn't know how to juggle, but it became one of their favorite things, okay? So you can't be scared to try new things. Learning matters, okay? We talked about finding your peers. You always have to be learning. If you want to be a good teacher, there's always something new for you to learn, for you to improve on, okay? Graduation from high school is just a start, okay? Graduation from EOU, it's just the start. Graduation from grad school, it's just the start. It's getting you to the launching pad for the next step, okay? So don't think all I got to do is survive this 4 years and then I'm done, okay? It's just the start. It's just the start. The best teachers and the best people at anything are always learning. Learning matters, okay? We're almost there. I'm starting to see people glaze over. I got one more thing to talk about. We're going to skip that movement break. We'll do it at the end if you want to, okay? This is my family, all right? It's my partner, Eva, who I've talked about a couple times. Teach high school Spanish in Vancouver. And my 2 kids, Benton and Parker. Oh, and my cat named Chicken. Parker named them Chicken. They were a stray. They crossed the road. Chicken. Makes sense, okay? Really confuses the hell out of the vet, though, okay? All right. So this is my family. I wanted to put them up here to share with you kind of the last thing that I've learned, all right? We want to hop back to last March 13th. My partner Eva was living in Portland at the time. I live in Parkdale. It's about an hour and 20 minutes away. Friday, March 13th, Eva's got the day off of school. She packs her bag up. She's on her way out to the house to hang out with me and my kids for the weekend. Okay, Eva and I had been dating for a while. We were kind of starting to talk about blending our families together and, all that mushy stuff. She comes out for the weekend, March 13th. She hasn't left, okay? That was the day that Kate Brown shut down the state, shut down the schools, and just life sort of grinded to a halt, okay? So Eva came out for the long weekend. And man, it's been a long weekend, right? It's been a long time, okay? Now, everyone in this picture, including myself, has gone through massive change since COVID happened, okay? And I'm not unique, right, in that situation. Everyone in this room has gone through some sort of change in the last year. Some good, some bad, all right? Eva finished grad school, took a new job during COVID. I just quit my job with Gus Hedberg, the guy who I said was the greatest principal. I just quit that job and took a new job because it was time for change for my family. I'm moving, I'm buying a house. My kids are going to go to new schools. My oldest is going to be in middle school. Parker decided they were non-binary last year. I didn't even know what non-binary was. My 8-year-old had to teach me about that. Chicken got their tail cut off yesterday at the vet. I didn't even know that could happen. It's not cheap, okay? So all kinds of crazy change in our life. I got married this last year. So it's just a big whirlwind of change in my life. And I've learned to say, I love that. I've learned to embrace that because change matters, okay? And it's gonna happen to you, all right? You cannot hold on to this moment. It's gonna be gone. It already is gone, okay? And there's nothing that you can do about it but get on board with the change. If you don't get on board with the change, you're gonna get left behind, okay? And I have to tell you, sometimes the change is gonna knock you on your butt, okay? And that's part of it. And we like to say in my family, you just gotta ride the wave, all right? I think I paid a therapist a lot of money for them to come up with that phrase for my family. But we like to say, you gotta ride the wave. Some of the waves are awesome, right? I'm about to get a new job in a new town, and we're buying a house that's so exciting, okay? That's a good wave for me, all right? But I know at some point that wave's gonna end, and I'm gonna have to hop on the next wave, okay? And I've ridden some waves in my life that are not good waves for me. But I had to learn to ride those and be present in those in the same way that I was for the good things, okay? And that's where true growth is going to happen in your life. When you're able to say, it doesn't matter what's going on around me, I'm able to be present and I'm able to ride that wave. Good, bad, wherever it takes you, knocks you on your butt, takes you to the highest place. You got to be able to ride that wave. Awesome. I'm going to wrap us up 8 minutes early. I'm ready for ice cream.
All right.
I don't know if you're ready for ice cream. I'd love to chat with you more if you have questions about what we talked about or you want to share a piece of your story. I would love to hear it. I want to tell Dave and everyone here, thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for taking the time to be here. This is awesome. This is a special opportunity. Take advantage of it. Okay? Awesome. Thank you.